Today we have 33 Jewel Court. They're seeking a conditional use permit for parking, and the requirement under the zoning ordinance is that the parking demand analysis will be reviewed by TAC prior to submitting to planning board. So I'll turn it over to you, Chris. Welcome.
Thank you, Peter, and members of the committee. For the record, Chris Mulligan from Boson and Associates in Portsmouth, on behalf of the applicant, 33 Jewel Court LLC. Jessica Kaiser is the principal of the LLC, and she's here with me. What we are looking for is some feedback on the parking demand analysis that we had submitted. Ms. Kaiser obtained a special exception last month from the Board of Adjustment to convert a portion of the office space at this location into an event space. Under the zoning ordinance, event space requires one parking space per, I believe, 100 square feet. This particular property is a constellation of buildings within a condominium association. Back in 1986, the development at that time received some zoning relief from the then current parking requirements. So there are 205 spaces in the overall site. None of that is going to change. We're not going to be restriping any of these spaces. We're not going to be changing any of the means of travel aisles, means of access and egress. No curbing is going to change. No walkways are going to change. So everything on site physically is going to stay as is. The only thing that is going to change is the interior use of this particular portion of 33 Jewel Court. So what we've provided is a breakdown of the uses as they exist today and what the parking demand would be. And based on the way I calculate it, given that some relief was previously granted, the uses as they're constituted now would require, under the current ordinance, 239 spaces. Again, there's only 205 spaces there. I think the overall requirement is somewhat academic because the amount of parking is less than would otherwise be required for all of the uses combined, and that's always going to be the case. So what we're looking for is to likely submit a formal application for a conditional use permit. I think the deadline to get before TAC with a formal application is this Friday. And what we would like is just your thoughts on what you would like to see beyond what we've provided. The plan here, by the way, is to utilize valet and shuttle services for the users of this event space, and Ms. Kaiser will have that be a contractual obligation of the people who are renting the space, and we anticipate that would be a condition of approval as this goes forward. But otherwise, I think we can meet all of the criteria necessary for a conditional use permit, and we look forward to going before the board to get one.
Okay, thank you. So, as stated, we're just, our job is just to look at the parking demand analysis and I guess at this point give some feedback before they.
Yeah, what is the language of the requirements of
The conditional use permit?
Yeah.
In our role,
Yeah.
it says, an application for a conditional use permit under this section shall include a parking demand analysis, which shall be reviewed by the city's technical advisory committee prior to submission to the planning board, demonstrating that the proposed number of off-street parking spaces is sufficient for the proposed use. So that's really our narrow role in this.
Okay. You need to come up with a demand analysis for this use, showing where they'll park. I guess, what's the demand like on site now?
So what we can tell you is that back in 1996, relief was obtained from the Board of Adjustment to allow 205 spaces, where at the time 270 spaces would have been required. So since 1996, this is a combined overall facility that's had less than what was required under the ordinance. Based on the way the ordinance has changed over the years, my calculation is that the required parking under the current ordinance would only be 239 spaces. Ms. Kaiser would testify that parking has never been a problem for her particular facility. I believe 28 spaces have been designated for her building within the condominium association, which I think is, again, kind of academic for your purposes, but for her individual use in that building, there's always been sufficient parking, and we don't see any reason that that would not be the case given this change of use, given the plan being to utilize and to commit to utilizing shuttle services and valet parking.
So when my company used to be in this building, and I have 2 tenants on the first floor as well who will be staying on the first floor. So we originally had, according to the HOA layout, we had assigned or allowed 28 spaces, but in fact, when we were all occupying our office spaces, we were using up to 60 to 90 spaces every single day. And that was, when Jimberg and I got together and formed the condo association, we had agreed that we would put this on a first come, first served basis based on the fact that some of these are residences, some of are commercial, we have a lot of transient traffic. So despite the fact that we had more demand than there was spaces, given the time frames when people were going to be using the spaces, we didn't see an issue. The amount of time that I've utilized the parking spaces, I was in from 2013 till 2019, and Jimberg came in 2015. Not once in my entire time at Jewel Court was I not able to find a parking spot. And there were always spots available. I never even had to go up towards where Otto's is now. But even when there was a heavy amount of construction and the snow that came in from the city got put next to the CVS building, there was still ample space behind where Otto's and CVS's back parking lot is today. So there's never been an issue. So at some point for several years, there were anywhere from 60 to 90 cars from my building in that parking lot daily. Moving forward, going into this as an event space that's going to require shuttles or valet, we would only be utilizing not even the 28 spaces that we have, because those would be going to vendors like caterers, florists, et cetera, who were prepping for the event. If we had 35 events per year, we would only be utilizing up to those 28 spaces for those events, and everything else would be simply shuttle or valet. So we would be using significantly less spaces than we ever did before.
There's a difference between parking demand and parking requirements. I mean,
Right.
you've talked about the zoning and variances for your requirements, but it doesn't get to what your actual demand is, and that's what you're discussing is your demand.
Yes.
Maybe we just need to see some way of documenting it, do a count, and go out and, count the number of vehicles in the lot at peak times. And,
Sure.
different times of the day, and to document what that demand is.
Okay. Given the fact that I won't be utilizing more than the 28 that is allocated to me, and I can certainly do that, would that change things?
Possibly,
Okay.
yeah. And where would they park to use the shuttle? Do you?
I don't, the shuttles, and I was going to ask, so I'm looking at building out this into our contract. So if somebody's going to host an event with me, they have to also pay me to coordinate transportation either through valet and I was going to work with Great Bay Limousine. They have a whole portfolio from trolleys to limos to shuttles and vans. I was going to ask them where they typically park. I'm not sure if they go over by, the highway, but they don't just park in the parking lots. They actually leave the premises and come back. But I can certainly do a count. I can take, peak times around 4 p.m. on a Friday. Might be 5 p.m., 6 p.m. To see what we're looking at.
Yeah, I would suggest doing that, a few different times of days or weeks or whatever, you know,
Sure.
when you think you'll have the peak and to show what the actual
Yep.
demand is.
And I can take time-stamped photos to make sure you guys can see what we're looking at.
Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts on what you think?
But it does seem relevant that the demand is very specific on the fact that her clients will be valeting, will be shuttling over to the site. And so, and if there's a certain number of spaces that are designated per the condo board, the agreement, which is 28, that includes both floors, right? So, floor 1 and floor 2.
Yeah.
And then presently, what's the demand on the first floor, which will remain? Do you have any idea how many parking spaces those folks use?
Right now, Harriman has about 5 people in there. Since COVID, people are not in there 5 days a week. Adam Group is in there on the left side every Wednesday, and that's it. There's about 16 people on Adam's side, and there's about 5 to 8 people on Harriman's side. Harriman's in there a bit more frequently.
Are there a number of spaces that are designated to the first floor?
So, not designated, no, but when we finalized the parking agreement with Chimberg, he did agree to put signs up that said all of the parking spaces along the perimeter of my building, which equaled 18 parking spaces, were exclusively dedicated to my building.
To your building?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Everything else in the parking lot is a first come, first serve.
right, okay, yeah.
What spaces are those?
Are those these spaces?
Yes, those are the spaces that there's signs that say dedicated to Jewel Court. Where I will show you guys significant vacancy at any time of the day is going to be the parking lot behind the Cooper House, which is the upper, like if you're looking at it, yeah, there you go. Especially in the evenings and weekends, because the residential community doesn't use that lot. And nor does any of the restaurant traffic. There's 22 spots in that lot.
That access is what, off of Albany?
Yep, right by Sullivan Tire.
So what would happen if, people decide, well, I don't want to use the limousine service, I'll just come and park on site, take a spot that I find?
They can't because they have to pay me in the contract. They can, the only thing that I'm going to coordinate is the rental of the property and their transportation. That's how their contract's going to be set up. And it's going to be done through me. So they can select whether they want valet or shuttle, but that is part of their contract and they pay me in advance prior to hosting the event.
But still, how does that keep an individual person who's coming to the event from just saying, oh, I don't want to use that, I'm just going to drive and park on the site?
It doesn't. That I can't control. I can build a fine into the contract saying that if you have, more than 10 guests, because I do want to give them, the chance. Again, I do have those 28 spaces, and I want to give them the chance if you have your bridal party or if you're bringing a dog or something, that there are the spaces along the perimeter of the building that those can be used. But if, we will, we have attendance at the event. If we see that that's being violated, there's a fine that's built into the contract that will be incurred.
I'm just thinking, worst case is you either go and take someone else's parking space in the lot, and
Yeah.
someone else is looking for it.
Yep. Yep.
And do you anticipate most of your events are going to be on weekends, or?
I do. Yep.
And so where a lot of the other businesses might not be using parking on the site, you'll have access to
Yes.
those because,
Yep.
we don't really care about dedicated spaces and as far as zoning goes. We just care that the uses on site and the parking spaces available
Yep.
meet the requirements.
Yep. Yep.
I would-
My tenants below won't be there on the weekends. The Cooper House tenants aren't there on the weekends. Even some of the businesses over by Botanica are not there on the weekend.
Yeah, so if you know when your events would be, do a parking count
counts,
at
right,
that
at
time.
that time.
Yeah.
Yep, I can absolutely do that.
One thing on the parking tabulation, the ordinance says when we have fractions, you round up and then add. So we did that, and it really comes up to 242.
Oh, okay, so
So, that's just,
I was cheating on my rounding up.
That's all right.
Okay. I can fix that.
yep.
The area that you're calling out, is it all on the lot? That
It
upper
is.
left area on the same lot, it looks
Yep.
like a lot line there.
Those are all part of the 205 spaces within our association.
They're all within your association?
Yep,
Is there multiple lots then, or?
there are.
Okay.
Yep. There's also, what I'm highlighting is the locations that receive the least amount of traffic.
Yeah, I saw that, but it's a line right there that,
Oh,
Looks
that
like a
is
lot line.
CVS. Yep, so that's CVS, but that yellow where I highlighted is all part of the Frank Jones. And then you'll see there is continued
yellow on the
spot.
left is CVS too? Is okay?
Yes.
for it to
Yep,
park
so
there?
there's about 5 spots in front of it, closer to Islington Street, if you look just up of there.
Yes.
Those are not highlighted because those are specific to CVS, and there's CVS signs there.
Okay.
So the fermentation house has like a party wall with the CVS building. I think that's,
Is that this line?
Yes.
Yes, yep.
CVS is not part of the historic association.
So if they can make a case, if you can make a case that you don't need as much shuttle or valet, just put that in your demand analysis. Make sure you account for what you need.
Yeah.
With an agreement that we can look at.
I appreciate that.
I agree, because you may have, folks that need accessible, if you have someone that, wants to show up on site and shouldn't really take a shuttle because of whatever disability they have, it would be nice for you to be able to accommodate some of your clients on site, right?
Yeah, I hear
So
you.
don't sell yourself short.
Okay.
You must have some idea of how many vehicles you would normally demand if you were on a standalone site and had an event, how many vehicles per 100 people or whatever. You must have some idea.
So when speaking with Atlantic Parking Services, which is the valet company we would look to use, he says somewhere between half to 35% is what you should expect from the total attendance. So if you had 100 guests, you'd be looking at somewhere between 35 to 50 cars that he would expect to park. But I'll have him drop some numbers for me as well, so we can really look at those.
So if we've discussed parking, I don't know if you, anything else?
No?
So you mentioned caterers. On that floor plan, the bottom right section is looking a little bit like a kitchen. I don't know if that's a three-bay sink. On the top wall of that bottom right room.
Yep.
You'd mentioned caterers. Would there be food preparation on site? Okay.
There is. We are in conversations with the building department right now in terms of what is allowed, what's not, what we can do. We're also speaking with several caterers, so we're taking several steps to make sure that we're putting a plan in place that meets code.
Okay, it would most likely need an external grease trap, 1,000-gallon.
We're trying not to do food prep on site. We're trying to just heat it up. So this would be a prep kitchen, this would be a heating kitchen, not a prep kitchen. So that's our goal, but I would
Okay.
make sure that this is all laid out in front of you all
Yeah.
for approval first.
And they've been working with the health department as well to make sure that's the case, because that is a big
Yeah.
consideration,
Very big
obviously.
concern there, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Change the use too. It would change the use too if you had a kitchen, working kitchen.
I'm trying to avoid a commercial kitchen at all costs, largely, one, because of, I don't want to get into that. I want caterers to have all food ready to go, heat it up, serve it. I do want to have significant refrigeration if they need to, keep things cold, but my goal is not to spend $100,000 so that people can prep food there. I already have to put in an elevator. It's going to run me a couple hundred. My budget's tapped.
So you can get everything together by Friday?
Is
think so.
long, the only thing that I would want to do is make sure I can get you those photos by Friday.
Okay.
I can definitely, what time on Friday? Oh, we're submitting on Friday.
Yeah.
As long as I can submit by end of day. If you guys want photos at like 5 o'clock in the
We
afternoon?
close at 1.
Okay. How am I going to get photos?
Can we supplement after the submission?
It shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Because we're going to want to see the counts on the weekend, right? I mean, that's going to be
Yeah.
important. So I think if you,
Just make sure you get the initial application in, so you got a spot.
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, whatever times you think you'll have your events, whether it's
Yeah.
5 o'clock on Friday or
Yeah,
4 o'clock on a Saturday or
Yeah.
2 o'clock on a Sunday,
got it. Okay.
anytime that's likely to have an event.
That I can do. And then we can submit those on Monday.
Peter, just technically, do I submit this through Viewpoint in the same portal that the special exception was submitted under, or do I?
We can include, we can build out those steps for the planning board in
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right, that's easy.
Huh. Oh, and, yeah.
I may have already added those steps, but I'll make sure they're there. Yeah, planning board's their tax, not there, but.
All right, do you have any more questions, or?
I
Set?
don't think I have any more questions. Do you? Okay.
I appreciate your time
All right.
today, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
All right,
We'll get everything prepped and ready to go.
great.
All right.
Thank you.
Being the only business, we'll adjourn this meeting.